Hi, welcome to Boring Money, Rich Life. I'm your host, Joy Hicks, and today I want to talk about remote work because that is very much in the news right now. Trump has shared that he wants all of the federal employees to return back in office. And as a remote employee myself, I'm not federal, thank goodness. But I will say this is kind of like near and dear to my heart because I feel like in 2020 with the pandemic, everybody had to pretty much work from home. Everything was shut down. And since 2020, everything has been getting done. You know, a lot of the CEOs and a lot of the corporations right now, their justification is that productivity needs to be increased and you can't be a successful employee if you're working from home. And honestly, I think all of that is bogus. Like, I think that is so bogus, to be honest, because I feel like employees were actually more productive when they were working from home because they knew, hey, I'm at home, I have to get my stuff in. I can't have my stuff late because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want them to think I'm not doing my job or what have you. I read a study, like not recently, but when this kind of came up with all of the tech layoffs, that showed that there was really no change in productivity from when employees were at home versus when employees were in the office. And to me personally, I think working in office is actually way more distracting because you can't really focus when you're in office because there's always people coming up to you, they want to talk, or now because we have like these open concept type of like workspaces, you might have somebody who's in a meeting, so you're just hearing them blabber on, whereas when you're at home, it's quiet, you're in your own space, so you can relax a little bit more. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that on this platform is because I think there's more to it. I really don't think it's just about productivity. I really do think that's like a bogus reason. So, we're going to kind of break this down a little bit. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting about Trump demanding that all of the federal employees return back to office is the fact that they don't even have space for everybody to return back in office. So you would think if this is something that's supposed to be enforced rather quickly, let's say at least by the next 90 days or something, you would assume that they have the logistics for this, right? There was an article saying today that they don't even have room for like 60% of the federal employees to all come back in office. And that's kind of interesting, right? Because it's like, it makes no sense. You're asking all of these people to come back into office, but you don't even have the space for them to come back into office. So that was something that kind of like made my light bulb go off a little bit. And then with me working in tech, like I said, a lot of people are remote. It's very common to work from home when you're in technology because literally everything we do, all of our meetings are on our computer. So it doesn't matter if I'm in the office or I'm in Jamaica, I'm doing the same thing on my laptop. So in technology, I noticed there was definitely a lot of like tech layoffs. And there was companies who were saying, you have to return back to office. If you don't, then you can pretty much say you no longer work here, right? And I felt like that was kind of the beginning of it. 2023 was kind of the year that we started to see a lot of the tech layoffs, which was really interesting because, like 2 years prior to that, in 2021 and in 2022, it was definitely an employees market. Like, there was job offers like 100,000, 120,000 for maybe like 2 years of experience being handed out because they needed people to do all of these things. They had a lot of like projections of what they wanted to build and so they were hiring a lot of people. And I believe 2023 was also the year that there was a CEO named Tim Gurner who was talking about pretty much corporations need to take power back from the employees, that employees were getting too comfortable, that employment was too low, and we needed to increase employment. that they wanted to create kind of like pain in the market because they felt like employees had too much power on their hands. Because not only were people working remote, there was also people who didn't want to work at all. And that was because in 2020, we had all of the COVID money, right? Some people actually were removed from their jobs. They were considered non-essential, so they couldn't work. A lot of people lost their jobs, but there were some people, who just was like, you know what? I do have this income. I'm going to use my head. I'm going to figure out how I can make more money. That's when we started to see like the TikTok surge. People were making $20,000 a month on social media doing content creation. And so corporations were like kind of in a bind where people didn't really have to work. They were already at home, they were already figuring out how to supplement their income. And so the people who did want to work, they were like, okay, I will work, but I want luxuries. I want the nice office when I do decide to come in, if you make me hybrid, and then I want to be home 3 days a week, or I want to be fully remote and I still want this high salary. But I don't feel like it was that bad because, again, productivity never really changed. Like in 2021 and 2022, we were just as productive as we would have been if we were in the office. So I feel like when CEOs use this excuse that productivity is not up, I think it's just because they really wanted that power back. And so now, fast forward to present day, we're in 2025, where we clearly seen that the job market last year, especially in like technology, but I would say for all industries, it was very challenging. So now you have the people who did get laid off in 2023 not being able to find jobs for anywhere from like 4 to maybe 9 months and wanting to, of course, keep the same type of salary that they had before. But now it has changed because there's like senior people who have been in roles for maybe 7 or 8 years who are competing for the same entry level job that somebody who is just coming into the workforce or who has only been into the workforce maybe 2 to 3 years. So it's highly competitive right now. And I think that's exactly what these CEOs wanted. They wanted employees to kind of feel burdened. He even in his clip, he said employees should be grateful to have a job. And so during the 2020 COVID times, people were like, okay, how can I maintain my health? How can I keep my job? How can I also be there for my family? And now you're starting to see where we have CEOs and we have corporations who are like, forget work life balance. You need to just be grateful that you have a job. And that's pretty much where we're at right now because not only is it super hard to find a job right now, inflation is very high. So everything is very expensive. So that is a complete difference from where we had 2020 all the way up until 2022, where everybody had money, people were getting back into traveling, whether it was with the mask or not. Like people really felt like they were a lot more in charge of how they made money and just in charge of their lives versus where we are now, where everything is expensive and it's hard to find jobs. I feel like that's really what the corporations wanted. Now, getting out of my feelings, right? And, thinking about this objectively and thinking about this as an investor, I think the reason why they want employees to return back to work is just because they want employees spending. Think about, your job in like this big corporate office, right? There's vending machines in there. There's probably a nice cafeteria in there. Next door, you might have a gas station. You might have a Starbucks. You might have strip mall, maybe 10 miles down the road. I think that's the only reason why they care because a lot of businesses had to downsize their offices. Like I said earlier, a lot of companies do not have the space to even bring their workforce back in office. I think it would be cheaper for them to let employees work remotely, but I think they spent so much money with their rent and so much money on these renovations. And then you have to think about all the other businesses that would benefit. I think that's the real reason why they want everybody coming back into office. Because think about it. Me, I'm remote, right? So I haven't bought work clothes in I don't know how long. Like, I don't need to because during the day, I get ready, but I'm probably putting on just gym clothes because I work out on my lunch break. So I don't have to go to like H&M and update my wardrobe every 3 months because I'm just in gym clothes. And I think that's really what the issue is. Most employees don't bring their lunch to work, right? Most of us eat out so much. So I think a lot of these businesses are starting to struggle because they don't have us coming in for lunch. They don't have us grabbing breakfast and early morning coffee. They don't have us going to the happy hours. Like the restaurant industry is struggling, of course. So I honestly think that's the only reason. I don't think it has anything to do with productivity because we actually seen where people were able to work more than one job and still get all of their work done at both jobs. And they were making tons of money. And that was one of the things that the corporations didn't like either. I think they didn't like the fact that people were more in control of their time. I don't think they liked the fact that people have the ability to make more money. And I don't think they like the fact that people aren't spending. So that is my objective take. Now, looking at it from an investment standpoint, I feel like this is probably happening, especially for government employees who really don't have a choice, right? Because they have these different contracts and things like that, and duty stations that they have to report to. So, how can you, as an investor, kind of benefit from this? I would definitely say, think about all of those surrounding businesses because all of them are going to start to benefit. Like even a tollway or a toll road, now that people are back on the highway, people are going to start buying more toll passes to kind of get through traffic a little bit easier. Gas is probably going to see an uptick because people have to use their vehicles. Of course, like restaurants are going to see an uptick as people are eating out, clothing stores as people have to get dressed and look nice and presentable. Even gyms, you'll probably see a lot more people being like, hey, I'm already out. I might as well go to the gym after work. So you can kind of look at it from that standpoint. I definitely think that's the reason, like in my personal opinion. I think that's probably the only reason. So, if you do have to go back in office, I would say now is the time to not just think of yourself as an employee of a company, start to think of yourself as an owner. Because if you hold shares into a company, you do have ownership stake in that company. We've talked about briefly like index funds and things like that. Like, definitely look at those as investment opportunities. Like, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't say which one specifically or which ones to buy. But instead of spending all of your money with these restaurants and spending all of your money on clothes and, the new gadgets that you might see your coworkers have, start to use that money to invest because that's what's going to give you more freedom. Because obviously, as an employee, we are kind of held to the standard of our company. What they ask us to do is kind of what we have to do until, we're in a place where our assets and our money are starting to work for us. So, as always, what is one boring thing that you can do today to start fueling your rich life? I'm Joy Hicks. Thank you for watching and be sure to subscribe.